Welcome to your weekly audio update on Alabama education legislation and policy from the Alabama Association of School Boards. This week, we're dedicating the entire episode to one topic, the FY27 Education Trust Fund budget package. You've probably heard the headlines. Alabama's ETF will surpass $10 billion for the first time. That sounds like great news for schools. But as your association, it's our job to help you look beyond the headline number. So, let's dig in. Yes, total ETF appropriations are crossing the $10 billion threshold for the first time in state history. But here's the critical context. Not all of that $10 billion goes to public K-12 education. Of the total ETF budget, K-12 receives about $7.1 billion, roughly 68%. Higher education gets about $2.7 billion, and the remaining $655 million goes to other state agencies and programs. So when you hear $10 billion for education, understand that K-12's share is about 2/3 of that total. Now let's talk about what's driving the increase. The two biggest cost drivers are the proposed 2% pay raise for education employees and the growing cost of PHIP. That's the Public Education Employees Health Insurance Plan. AASB strongly supports competitive pay and good benefits for education employees. But here's the reality. Those two items together consume most of this year's funding increase. The new dollars flowing to classroom instruction, operations, and local discretionary spending are, frankly, small compared to the top-line number. Here's how the increase breaks down for local school boards. Under the House-passed budget, local boards would receive a $321 million increase over fiscal year 26. Of that, $197 million goes to the Foundation Program, primarily to cover the pay raise and PHIP. Another $104 million goes to transportation operations, and about $7 million goes to school nurses. The bottom line, most of the new money is already spoken for before it ever reaches a classroom. In addition to the main budget, lawmakers are considering a $419 million FY26 ETF supplemental. That's one-time money from surplus revenues. Last year's supplemental was $524 million, so this is already a step down. Here's what concerns us. Of that $419 million, only 35% is directed to K-12 schools, well below K-12's 68% share of the overall ETF. Of the $146 million going to K-12, $25 million goes directly to local school boards for bus fleet renewal, and $112 million goes to the State Department of Education. Another $31 million goes to vendors and pass-through entities. To put that in perspective, the amount going to vendors is more than the $25 million one-time allocation for school safety and security. The Education Advancement and Technology Fund Supplemental, the EAT, is $1 billion this year. This is the primary flexible funding source local school boards can use for things like facility repairs, deferred maintenance, technology, transportation, school security, and capital outlay. However, all local school board appropriations in the EAT were cut 8.8% from the governor's recommendation to shift money toward legislative special projects and CTE grants. Local boards are receiving $570 million from the EAT, while CTE gets $150 million and legislative special projects receive $4.9 million. We want you to be eyes wide open about what's coming. Surplus revenues are declining, and fast. Here's the 3-year trend. In fiscal year 25, the EAT supplemental was $1.2 billion. This year, it's $1.1 billion. Next year, it's projected at just $617 million. The ETF supplemental drops from $419 million this year to an estimated $295 million next year. Meanwhile, the legislature is advancing more than $458 million in tax credits and exemptions this session, money that would have otherwise flowed into education funding. And basic K-12 functions remain chronically underfunded. State funding for school buses is still based on 1994 levels, covering only about 54% of the cost of a new bus today. School resource officers receive no recurring ETF funding. Textbooks are funded at $100 per unit, while many high school textbooks now cost nearly $400. The gap between what the state funds and what it expects K-12 schools to deliver keeps growing. The Senate Finance and Taxation Education Committee takes up the budget package when the legislature returns from spring break on March 31st. We'll be there, and we'll keep you informed every step of the way. In the meantime, AASB wants to hear from you. This week's poll asks, what are your school system's greatest unfunded or underfunded needs? Click the link in this week's newsletter to share your input. Your voice directly shapes how we advocate for you at the State House. You can also view the full House-passed ETF budget spreadsheet at alabamaschoolboards.org. Thanks for listening. The headline says $10 billion, but now you know the full story. Keep advocating for your schools.